Hi, everyone. I'm Sue Daly. I'm the Director for Tech and Innovation at Tech UK. And it's my absolute pleasure to be chairing today's panel, which hopefully will tie up a lot of the discussions and a lot of the topics that we've been talking about today with some brilliant leaders. I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves so you hear from them first. Drew, we just heard from you, so stand down. You did good, right? We'll come back to you in a minute. But Lee, can we start with you? Do you want to introduce yourself to people that I presume everybody knows you, right?
Some people maybe. So Lee Rand, so I'm the general manager of our HPC and AI practice, looking after Europe, Middle East and Africa.
Michael?
Cool. I'm Michal Gabrielczyk. So you might have heard of Carbon 3 AI because we've only really just burst onto the scene.
Well, tell us a little bit about.
So we were an energy business. We're transforming into an AI solutions provider. So we're working quite closely with HPE on some of these technologies we've just been talking about.
Wonderful.
I guess we'll
Yeah, we'll hear more about that. And then go, Paul.
Hi everyone, I'm Gopal Ramchan. I'm a professor of AI at the University of Southampton. I'm also CEO of Responsible AI UK. I've also got an energy business called Empathy, where we build AI for smart energy systems.
Some really interesting perspectives here. And we're going to be talking about leveraging AI. We want to talk about the opportunities, the potentials, where business leaders are right now, where the trends are, where the conversation is perhaps right now. But then also some of the challenges, and two of the challenges that we've identified to talk about today is sovereignty and sustainability. So Drew, will definitely come to you on sustainability in a bit. But sovereignty, I know, is an issue and a topic that is coming up increasingly. And we're going to talk a little bit about today's, why is that an AI conversation? Is it a technology-wide conversation right now? I have my views on that, but you're here to hear from them, not from me. And we're talking about, where business leaders are and perhaps explore how business leaders can manage and perhaps balance these challenges with increasingly the opportunities that AI provides. And we talked a lot this morning about having strategies, so perhaps we'll talk a little bit about that as well. So a bit of an opening question, and Drew, if that's okay, we heard a bit from you. I'm going to go to the other panelists. How are we positioned in the UK right now in terms of, I'm thinking AI development, AI adoption, AI use? It's a lot in the media. It's a hot topic right now. But Lee, perhaps we can come to you first in terms of, perhaps setting the scene of where are we right now? How is the UK positioned on AI? What would be your view?
I think I was fortunate enough to attend the NVIDIA event last week, Thursday ago, where Jensen was on stage and did a masterclass in how to position sovereignty with regards to AI. It was a masterclass in PR and marketing also.
He was wearing a suit.
He was wearing a suit for the very first time. He borrowed a tie off his daughter's boyfriend or something like that was the story. He had Sakir Starmer on stage with him. But I think, my background is many years in the HPC world. And I think from where I see the UK at the moment, we've always been leading the world in research, academic output, the talent, the skills base in the country. And I think the event the other week with NVIDIA was very much around the missing piece, which is to utilise and get the best out of this research and skill set we have in the UK. We need the infrastructure. And the big announcement that Thursday was all around the investment that NVIDIA are going to make with their big customers, big investment into the UK, AI growth zones in the north, mentioned the Bristol system, mentioned other systems coming in with some US companies, with Microsoft big investment, with OpenAI coming in with Stargate UK. It was a huge, huge announcement. And that was very much centered around how do we build the infrastructure to support the research and the capabilities of the UK. And I think talking to most of the customers that I look after, which are more in the enterprise, is really about, we have a strategy. We have a problem with sustainability around power and data centers because we talked earlier on about the average IT load is 4 to 6 kilowatts a rack. 8 GPUs is 13 kilowatts. So you now have 2 in a rack. So, and real estate in the UK is very expensive. So you can't just keep on air cooling these things. There'll be a position where you simply can't. The technology won't allow it. So I think that's what we're seeing in the UK. This juggling of infrastructure to be able to use the talent pool, but also how are they going to deploy it? Where are they going to deploy it? How are they going to level up? How are they going to get the power? Where are they going to build these things? How are they going to get access to it? How's it going to be governed? How's it going to be regulated? This whole thing that we've been discussing today is really going to come to a head, I think, in the next kind of 12, 18 months for sure.
Thanks, Lee. And I saw Jensen speak at London Tech Week in June, and he was very much talking about the UK being in a very much a Goldilocks zone, was the way he described it. I'm not sure, Drew, if that's not too hot, not too cold, but go back to cooling, but about we're in a good position. And Mikhail, it feels like we are in a good position. Does it feel like that for you as well? And I suppose, particularly if we think about comparing the UK and where we are right now with the rest of the world, it feels like we are in that Goldilocks kind of.
It does, and I think Akhil touched on this earlier with the legislative.
I missed him. Apparently, everybody was like he was brilliant. So I'm sorry I missed you, but I will definitely watch it back.
So maybe it's a Brexit bonus, controversial thing to say, but this opportunity to be the landing zone for Europe, probably us, I'm talking about, I wasn't there myself, but the ability to talk to big US investors, big US tech, and the needs of Europe, more general position of the UK in a really good place. We have really, to the skills point you just made as well, a really good ecosystem of customers that know what they can do with AI here already, just itching to get going, and that's a good place to be starting from.
Yeah, maybe we can talk about some of the challenges, some of the barriers that might be holding that back from really pushing forward. But Gopal, what's your view, and from particularly where you sit, obviously very academic, you're looking at the research community, but more generally, what's your view?
I mean, from so I think that Lee said, I mean, the UK is great at doing the research, and hundreds of millions of pounds have been invested in deep tech research. So 100 millions into the AI hubs, 9 AI hubs that look at AI in chemistry, healthcare, semiconductor design, etc., etc. So lots of money going into that, but most of the graduates out of these programs are out of the CDTs, the Centers for Doctoral Training. They're basically PhD factories. 2 rounds of those been funded in the last 5 years. They are producing lots of PhDs, lots of great developers, AI developers, but many of them are just going to the hyperscalers. Big salaries being offered there, 10 million at Meta, or amazing options at packages at Apple. And very few of them are actually staying back and building their own companies, or even having access to the right resources to build their own companies. And I think when it comes to building data centers in the UK, we're doing some work with the Royal Academy of Engineering around understanding the infrastructure requirements, policy requirements, etc. And going back to Drew's point about the price of electricity. If you compare the price of electricity here, I think it's around 20p, 24p per kilowatt hour, compared to Finland, Sweden, it's around 7. The economics don't stack up in many cases to build data centers unless you can guarantee an ROI of some sort in the UK, and which is why we're sort of seeing probably data centers being centered around high solar production areas where it's going to be cheap to generate that electricity. So yeah, it's a bunch of challenges here around, sustaining, UK businesses, AI businesses in terms of the talent pipeline, but also in terms of building sovereign data center capacity based on the cost base.
Are you optimistic though that we can address those challenges, or we can get that entrepreneurial spirit going, or do you think the boat has already sailed?
I think it's hard to compete with the salaries that you get.
10 million,
Hard to beat that. I think getting a sense of sort of not teaching, but at least getting the younger generation to value sovereign capabilities. Understanding that it's important to be leading in some ways, and I think the French are doing that really well. Supporting the national sort of LLM, with Mistral, and Europe doing that with the Euro LLM, and really really banking on their own. I was at a European Trustworthy AI conference a couple of weeks ago, and that was all the talk. How do we build our own thing? And I don't see. We had a few conversations like this at the Turing Institute a while back, but that's died down, and it would be good to revive that a bit and understand what does it mean to build our own AI, and because at the end of the day, we need to trust that AI to follow our principles, our ethics, and I think that may inspire that pipeline.
Yeah, we'll come back to ethics in a bit. I know that's a hot topic for you, as it is for me as well. But before we kind of look at some of the challenges, Lee, I just wanted to come back to you in terms of what you're hearing from business leaders, because you talk to business leaders, and Mikhail, and you do too. So I'd love your views on this. Of what are the trends, what are the insights, particularly on use of AI? Like, is it being seen as that competitive advantage yet? Is it just that companies are still finding their feet? Where do you think we are exactly?
I think the
What are
one,
business leaders telling you?
I think the ones that have adopted it and advanced are seeing a benefit from it straight away. You know, I get to travel like many people have European jobs at HPE, especially I was into talking to a bank in Saudi. They've got 167 use cases that they've developed themselves in-house. One use case saved them $32 million from one use case.
Wow.
Right, they've gone full head, they've built internal teams, they are head down and going for it. And I think we see pockets of that in the UK. I think the challenge does come around the infrastructure. I think we're seeing a lot of companies do POCs with the hyperscalers, build sandboxes in there.
Yeah.
You know, some apps already have their data in the cloud, so it's very easy to do that. If you've got a massive contract with a hyperscaler, you know, you probably, if anyone that's been to HPC shows over the last 10 years, you get the hyperscalers with their free credit cards, right, giving out to students, which are a liability. They're taken away. But it's not, the barrier to entry to running a POC in a hyperscaler is really, really low. The problem then comes with you find a workload, you find a use case, you find an ROI, and then you go, how do I adopt that as part of my business?
How do you scale it up?
How do I scale it out? Then you go, well, okay, my data's not in the cloud,
Yeah.
so therefore it becomes a data problem straight away, because most of this, you need data. My view is it's a data problem fundamentally to start with. And then it's how's it regulated, how's it managed, how's it safe, how are you controlling it, you know, do you have a data center, do you outsource it, do you go back to a hyperscaler, then you've got egress charges, then you might not want to move your data into a hyperscaler. That's a sovereign problem, because as soon as you put your data in there, you know, which law governs your data? Is it the European AI Act? Is it the US Cloud Act? Does the financial services and the regulated industry want their data governed by a US Cloud Act? So it all suddenly becomes a really big challenge from what started off as a POC. Let's find a use case, let's find an ROI. So then how do you actually take that and drive it through your business and create transformation, change your business? And that's probably one of the biggest things. The second biggest thing is, you know, you have a data scientist that comes up with an idea that turns around to his IT director and says, I want to buy one of these GPU boxes.
Yeah.
And the guy goes, great. Finance guy goes, they're really expensive. And the IT guy goes, I've got nowhere to put it. Because they don't have a data center, they don't have the power, they don't have liquid cooling, right? So then it becomes, you know, is it an outsourcing deal? Is it a colo deal? So suddenly what started off as a POC, someone's got a great idea, and data scientists love coming up with ideas, right? To then taking that into production, scaling it and making it part of your day-to-day workload, I think is probably where we're seeing the biggest.
Mikhail, you're nodding along there, and in my brain, I'm already kind of going, okay, well, how do we make this easy, not hard? Are these the challenges that what you're seeing from this?
Yeah, it's exactly the problem. People who have no problem are the AI natives who are in the cloud already, who are starting with data that was maybe scraped off the internet.
So they don't have the legacy, they don't have, you know.
Exactly, and so yeah, these are all sorts of problems we see our prospective customers having to deal with, and skills is the other problem. So if you are going to procure your own data center, do you have people who know how to deal with liquid cooling, which is now necessary? Do they know how to deal with networking, which is hugely complex now? I'm having to upskill myself every week on new things on that. And then new layers of technology stack on top of all of that. So who can you trust to help you with that?
Yeah, we were talking, weren't we, at lunch that seems things are, I mean, we all know things are moving incredibly quickly, but it could be a couple of weeks and then things have moved on and you have to kind of go, okay, I have to get my head around this now.
Yeah.
That's where business leaders are as well.
I think that's that when I hear of all these challenges, now I talk to a number of enterprise leaders, and they talk about all these, and particularly in Europe, right? Thinking about regulation, the EU AI Act, how you conform to that. Some of them are reluctant to adopt AI because of regulation, because they don't know what standards to conform to. And ITU just published a report a bit on this based on the AI for Good Summit, which I'll highly recommend. So lots of uncertainty in the marketplace, and while all of that is happening, what I'm guessing is also happening is that there are a bunch of AI innovators out there who are going to be AI first companies who don't have all this legacy, processes and all sorts, and are just building stuff in the cloud. And I think large enterprises are really struggling with adopting AI at scale, and encouraging their staff to really innovate using these tools. For example, I don't know whether any one of you has tried, I mean, maybe you have tried to build your own app on Claude or on GPT-5, right? And if you've tried, I would highly recommend you try that tonight. You know, build me an app to do X, Y, Z, right? I built an app to do some calculations on an Excel sheet. I don't know most of the JavaScript code that I've generated, but it works. And I checked the output, it works. I did that in half an hour.
Wow.
The Python code I couldn't understand, but all the other React JS stuff I could know. And you can do that within half an hour. Are we teaching our developers, are we teaching our students to use these tools to be AI natives? How do you become an AI first company? I think we need to go through that very quickly because we're going to be taken over by others anywhere in the world, because right now access to expertise has gone down to nearly zero. I mean, creatives are losing their jobs, marketing staff are losing their jobs. I mean, we're still not stabilized yet on what are the functions that you can take out from your company,
Yeah.
but it is happening, and we need to be ready for it.
Yeah, it's a very live debate. Before we get on to sovereignty and then back to sustainability, Drew, I just wanted to come to you in terms of, there was a question as well brought up early this morning about how do we help, do we need to educate business leaders? And I'm just reflecting on what everybody else has said. There's a lot of questions, there's a lot of issues, perhaps a lot of worries that are on business leaders' minds. How do you then cut through in terms of, or how do we need to help educate them about the energy issues on top of that? Do you find that a challenge? Is it hard to cut through?
Not if you can get to the right people to talk to.
Getting to the right
Yeah,
place.
yeah. But if you can get to the right people to talk to, it's just and my favorite quote is Einstein's: "If you can't explain something simply, you don't know the subject well enough," right? And it's just a matter of that, like depending on their interest, right? If it's a CFO of the data center company, or the company that's going to be using that own the data center, then yeah, it's just putting the business case in their terms and why this makes sense. Because most just think about, recovering heat from a data center. Oh, it's a sustainability. It's a coming requirement because Germany established the benchmark and all of this. But it's not. It's a positive business case for everybody.
Yeah.
In addition to a significant decarbonization opportunity, and it's just finding the right people and telling the story in their terms, as is the case for anything.
Yeah, finding the right people who've got the headspace to think about it, but then put it in the terms that make sense to them. Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Drew. We will come back to sustainability and energy. We're going to hear more from Drew, but let's just touch on sovereignty first of all. Let's start with the really easy one. So AI brings opportunities, brings challenges. Sovereignty is a topic that we've heard more about this year than I think for a long time. And Mikhail, maybe I come to you in terms of maybe let's starting off, because it can mean different things in different contexts and different people. If I'm in a room with policymakers, it will mean a very different thing than if I'm in the meeting with perhaps HPE and your customers. So what do we mean by the term sovereignty, and what do you think is driving the sovereignty discussion right now? We'll go on to whether it's AI sovereignty or whether it's a broader digital sovereignty conversation, but we've identified it as one of the challenges. So can you help us out? What do we mean by sovereignty here, and what's the conversation that you're hearing?
Yeah, so sovereignty is about control of one's own destiny.
That's very big for a Monday afternoon.
Right, and that's why we hear about it on a national scale quite a lot. But for us in the room, it's probably a little bit more relevant to think about it as an organisational thing. The national piece doesn't go away. But from an organisational perspective, am I in control of where I'm going with AI and data? To bring it back to what we're talking about. And as we use AI and data to drive much more critical workloads and applications in everything we do in processes, and maybe we're even, I'd say, augmenting people rather than replacing them, I'd hope. We're relying on that much more. So if we don't have sovereign control to some degree over those processes and that data, then we're maybe at risk. And so I think the most sophisticated conversations I'm party to are the ones where we think about risk rather than sovereignty, which is a little bit too broad. And so we think about risk in terms of, am I placed at, are there business continuity risks down to how I'm using AI and data? Am I at risk of IP leakage because of the way I'm using AI, either downstream or upstream, actually, where the data is coming from? So those are the kinds of questions I think are really important. And so that means then the answer to how would I become sovereign does depend on those sorts of risk assessment type questions.
Thank you, Mikhail. Lee, so is that how HPE think about sovereignty? It's about control, it's about risk, or how do you guys define it?
I think it's both those things. It's control, it's risk. I mean, I look at it sovereignty. The analogy I use is like the CO2 emissions of your car. If you draw a box around your car, it's really efficient. If you start expanding that box around your whole supply chain, then the CO2 story changes. And that's like sovereignty. If you draw a box around your data, you can have sovereign data. But then you need to draw a box around the data centers. You need to draw a box around the networking. You need to draw a box around the human people that control the data. You know, and then it becomes an access. And when you start building the bigger box around it, then it gets a lot more complex.
Yeah.
And I think so for us as HPE, we look at it across all facets of the business. It's around security, it's around safety, it's around access, it's around, you know, nationalisation. I was talking to BT, for instance, and they see a big problem when a government comes out with a contract that says it must be sovereign, because they go, well, that's sovereign networking, that's sovereign data centre, that's UK nationals with access to it. That's completely locked down, right? And they price for that against a hyperscaler that may have a sovereign data center, and the data may be sovereign, but the network isn't sovereign, and the data could be stored anywhere over the world. And so, how do you create a level playing field where everyone understands what sovereign is clearly defined as? And then he brought that horrible word about more regulation around it, which no one wants. But we're at the point where potentially you need to really define what sovereign means, especially in the business world and the commercial world, because that then enables people to act and bid and work on contracts that require sovereignty, however that is defined.
So is the challenge, and the challenge for business leaders, and maybe the challenge for people in the room, is it's not defined, and it's that lack of clarity then? Is that the challenge that they're facing?
Yeah, I think risk, control, security, all the things that you would associate with sovereignty. How do you put a box around that and have a clear definition of that? What it is?
The government's around.
Because the government will argue, well, you can use a hyperscaler because it's Five Eyes. So we put Five Eyes data into the cloud. So why not? So if that's sovereign enough for secure government work, then that should be sovereign enough for anything. But
Sovereign enough is a really good way of putting it,
right?
because there's a limit, right? How far do you go?
But then it's how much data do you want as a national to have in the AI that's working for you, and then also where is that stored, processed? Do you feel secure and safe having your data and what you're using?
So it's really interesting, Gopal, isn't it? Because you and I have been around this, as we all have around this for a number of years. I'm thinking now a lot of that we talked about in data localization for many, many years. So my brain kind of goes to, okay, well, how is this different? Geopolitically, we know it's different because sovereignty has become more of a geopolitical issue. But just maybe feel free to touch on that, but bringing it back to kind of where we are. Do you think this is just an AI conversation, or do you sense what I'm sensing of it? It's a digital, it's a technology sovereignty conversation. It's not just about AI, or do you think AI is driving this?
I think there are different layers of the stack you can think about here. I mean, I want to talk about sovereignty. Do you control your cost base? Can you control that? If you leave it to hyperscalers who are ramping up there, and no one knows how they price these things, by the way. If you've looked at the pricing models for all the tokens, right? The number of input tokens, output tokens, $10 versus $2.50 for GPT-4.
But then even the prices can depend on exchange rates, which aren't being controlled by the hyperscalers anyway. So it's like, well, who's controlling this?
So
Sorry,
it's hard to know where to go. But to give you some examples where sovereignty really matters, and taking examples from developing countries. So when when the new government came in the US, they shut down funding to USAID overnight. All the electronic healthcare record systems in Kenya shut down because they relied on data that was processed in Palo Alto on the servers there. So that got erased, lost all the data. I mean, some people still have a copy of that. Another example of where you need to have some sovereignty is South Korea. I don't know if you're watching what's going on in South Korea, but they lost the data centers caught fire. Lost all the data. I mean, they still have some backup somewhere, and they're now trying to recover that. Now, that's the downside of having your own data centers, is that you need to recover
all your eggs in one basket.
All your eggs in one basket. So you need to worry about these things. But I think on the AI level, what maybe people who played with these models would be aware of it. They're all trained on some data set, right? So the Llama 4s or Llama 2s and Quen and others, the Chinese version of these LLMs, or there will be the European version of those. The European one has a known training set and all the weights are open, etc. But for most of the others, we don't know what data they've been trained on. Now, if you're trying to build your own corporate LLM, and you're using an open source one, right? You don't know what features have been built into it. And what we then get into is, well, you have a choice around what model you implement, but also how do you retrain it? How do you fine tune it? What is the cost of that? I think that's one thing I didn't see earlier in some of the talks. So what's the cost of retraining, fine tuning, which can be huge, right? And the organization will change over time, and you will need to keep retraining that to provide better and better outputs.
Or a regulator might require you to.
Or a regulator might require you to. Yeah. So, and the cost of doing that is not clear right now, which is why there's uncertainty around the adoption of these large language models.
Very interesting. Anybody else want to touch on the sovereignty issue? If not, we'll move on to the other challenge, which is, not that we've solved the sovereignty, right, solve sovereignty, let's move on. I honestly think this is going to become a question and a topic and an issue we're going to be hearing more about into 2026. And it is something that, whether we like it or not, is being driven geopolitically, and there's a lot happening in that area, but definitely something that we're seeing at Tech UK, we're going to be doing some more work around. So conversation continues. But bringing it back to the second challenge of sustainability, and we talked, of course, a lot about that today. What are the sustainability issues and impact that business leaders are most concerned with right now? And Drew, I'm going to bring it back to you, because my question was, for example, is it energy use? Is it resource demand? Is it costs? Going back to energy pricing. What is, when you have that conversation, when you get to the right people, and you have that conversation with business leaders right now, and they, I'm hopefully kind of go, this is what's on my mind, this is what I'm worried about. What is it that, where does the conversation start? Do you know
Energy
what I mean?
use.
And is that because they're worried that they're using too much, or they're worried about the cost of what they're using?
Yeah, it's almost all the second, right? But it's using too much energy, but it's the cost associated with it is the primary concern. And that ties to the segue, right? The case that we make, then reutilizing that is going to make a lot more sense now, right?
But we touched on this morning, which I thought was a really interesting point, that around, okay, we've got the AI challenge, but we've got the existing technology stack, right? That's creating energy as well. So is this a challenge that a concern that they have about the whole of their technology stack and everything that they're using, or is it being driven by AI?
I don't know that they know enough to answer that question, or that I do, really. But I think it's primarily, I think it's all wrapped into one energy use topic for them, for most of them, even the ones I know.
Yeah. Lee, in terms of sustainability, what are you hearing from business leaders? Is it that we're just using too much and it's just costing us too much? Is that what's driving the conversation?
I think cost is by far the biggest conversation, because especially in the UK and in mainland Europe, outside of the Nordics, the cost per kilowatt hour is we're 20 odd p a kilowatt hour versus, we're talking about 7 or 8. I've heard Finland can get down to 4. Wow. Right? So when you're building 5, 10, 20, the new system in Edinburgh is going to be 24 megawatts, and you're paying 20p here, 5p. There's a decision where you build your data center. A lot around liquid cooling, a lot around the energy efficiency. So we're seeing a lot more customers talking about moving towards liquid cooling, but it's a journey. It's an 18-month project to transform a data center from today into liquid cooling. Even if you go the modular route, it's not a month project. It's an engineering and a building project to do it. So there's lots of that. Be interesting on Carbon's view of this is, how do you price energy into your costs, right? So we're moving, the world 2 years ago was, we're going to stand up bare metal provisioning of H100 GPUs, right? And if you're in that business, that's quite hard at the moment. So you have to then have a software stack, you have to have an application portfolio, you have to be in this what we call token economics world. So how do you then price your power into a token in, token out?
In an ongoing
In
way.
an ongoing,
Yeah.
in an ongoing way that you can control depending on your power bill. As we move much more into the world of agentic AI, where you're linking things together, an inferencing world where there's lots of tokens flying around, how do you price that in to a workflow? Because that's going to be where the market goes. It's going to be what we call the token economics world, where it will be tokens in, tokens out, and then you'll get a price for it. It won't be, I want 1,024 whatever they are, H200s for what used to be a 36-month reservation. I think, interest in your view, I think anyone signing up for 36-month reservation is pretty much gone now, right? They want 12 months
Wow.
max. 24 months is super hard,
Yeah.
right? Then you get the economics of matching NVIDIA's roadmap that changes every 6 months. A new one comes out. So whereas you used to write down your infrastructure investments over 5-7 years, you've got to flip that to 4.
Yeah.
And what does that do to your pricing? So you end up with a really complex potential pricing world where power and hardware are the two, and people. Then how does that all flow down into that sustainability message? So it's going to be really interesting to see how that pans out.
Mikhail, you've got all the answers, right? You've got a solution?
Well, yeah, I'm just trying to navigate it really, and well, all the right points. I think cost of power is important, and when you're selling GPU per hour, which is where the market's been for the last 4 or 5 years, it's been where do I get the last? I mean, customers are coming to me saying, where do I get A100, A100, whatever the latest GPU was, and availability was the first problem, and then after that was price, and price in that model especially is driven more than energy by depreciation. So even 4 years is a long time. So you might have an accounting period of 4 years, maybe 3 years. But if Jensen comes out with something that's 10x more efficient, then actually it's 18 months, 2 years.
Yeah. Which we've never seen that kind of rate
And it's
before.
mad. At that point, I saw a note last week which showed time-lapse satellite footage of a Meta campus where they were building DCL. They built this thing air-cooled. Before they'd finished it, they'd knocked it down and rebuilt it for liquid.
Wow.
So that tells you how different the step change economics is between some of these generations.
Yeah.
So yeah, energy is super important, but it's not just about cost, it's availability of energy, or more so availability of energy, it's about resilience of energy, and then we've got to work out how on earth we all navigate the depreciation schedules, which obviously accountants are all pleased we're talking about it now.
Yeah, and at the same time as all this, are business leaders considering sustainable AI solutions? Like, are they looking at how AI could be a solution to addressing some of the sustainability challenges itself? Is that part of the conversation you're having with people?
Yes and no. So there is still this drive to solve. I've got problems I need to solve with AI today.
Yeah.
How do I do it? But everyone like for like, everyone would rather have the more sustainable solution. We're selling to people. The people know the problems, and so that's it's an emotive point. It's a soft point quite a lot of the time, but really the thing that sells it will often be the numbers. Is the community cost.
So it's in the mix, but it's not driving the debate. It's not driving the conversation.
In the latter part of the conversation, it is, because it's again getting them to recognize the opportunity that it enables. What it enables. For example, we had a conversation with an industrial company about a year ago, and it was the first one that it came up. I was talking about this at lunch, that the company said that the number one factor that they wanted us to do to get rid of their gas for was to, based on the embodied carbon, the scope 2 emissions, the embodied carbon in their product that they were delivering to their electric car company customers, because those customers were telling them that their product was too high priced relative to the others because of the tax on the embodied carbon. So what we suggested was, recovering the heat from the cooling system, or rejecting heat that was rejecting heat through cooling towers to electrify their heating system based on heat pumps, very similar to, not a data center recovery, but very similar to it. First step to do that, though, is instrumenting everything. like, because they don't have that. In small to medium industrial facilities, they don't have an energy manager, much less instrumentation of anything. And so you have to go measure everything to then determine the opportunity for electrifying it. And how you get the report is becoming significantly easier because of AI tools based on that instrumentation to then tell you how much energy are you getting real time, how much are you using real time, how does that balance, how much storage do you need. All of that can be answered really quickly now, but that depends also on the software implementation ahead of that, along with the instrumentation.
Amazing, really interesting.
But people get it when you explain it to them.
Which is good, right? And then it's the next steps they need to take. So, Gopal, I wanted to ask you, we are going to get to a bit of a Q&A as well. So if you've got questions, keep them in your thinking caps. I don't like that word, those words trade-offs, but what I'm thinking is this a choice for business leaders then of AI acceleration, because it's moving really quickly and I don't want to miss the boat, I don't want to get left behind, but sustainability, is it, can they have both? I truly believe that that's the conversation we need to be having, but it doesn't feel like it right now. I don't know, am I being a bit?
I think it's different now. I think last year, 2 years ago, you'd go into a conversation about AI, sustainability, or just sustainability in general. And I went to COP29 just to see what the conversation was about. And none of the hyperscalers were there. None of the FANGs, Google's, Amazon were not there. It was very clear. And COP29 is interesting event. I mean, people talking about planting trees to save the world and stuff like that, and tracking various crops around the world to try and capture carbon emissions, a reduction, which can't be measured, can't be crystallized, can't be really priced, and which is why the carbon markets are not working right now. And I was thinking this is not right. And most of the conversations around AI sustainability were around scope 1, 2, 3 emissions. We've not spoken about scope 1, scope 2, scope 3 emissions at all so far, right? And now it's become an economics problem, which is great. I think.
But to Drew's point, that's what you need, right?
That's what you want, and you want everyone to be talking about the cost of energy, which has been the main problem with for climate change. I'll just from your slide, we just cross out the climate change thing because that's not part of the conversation anymore. Okay, the hyperscalers have gone crazy. 182% increase in Amazon's carbon footprint, according to some reports. We don't know for sure because no one measures it accurately enough. But they've all written off their carbon targets. And now it's just a question of energy cost reduction. And the cheapest form of energy is renewable energy. And you see also huge investments in SMR, so small nuclear reactors that will hopefully come about faster because big tech is investing in it. Elon Musk tried to build this colossus data center, massive data center in the US, and needed 24/7 power. What did he do? Well, he built lots of Tesla Powerwall batteries into the facility to give him this backup power. So much investment going to battery technology because of data centers. So there is a plus side to this, I think, with all these investments in energy for data centers. But also, we need to think about the benefits to society at large and how do we reallocate some of these AI dividends to wider society, because they do impose a cost on certain communities. If you're going to build a big data center in Oxfordshire, it's going to drain probably more electricity, more investment in transformers, in the distribution lines or in the water network. We need to make sure that the local community also benefits. It's not going to benefit enormously in terms of jobs, but maybe in terms of cheaper electricity, maybe in cheaper water. And we need to think about the same thing when it comes to access to AI services or AI training potentially. So making sure everyone benefits from it.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to ask. I've got a bit of a final question, and then we'll come on to a bit of Q&A because challenges we've looked at is around sustainability and sovereignty, but I'm curious as what other challenges business leaders or issues business leaders raise in terms of leveraging AI. And Gopal, perhaps come to you first. What do you hear the most from people if it isn't sustainability and it isn't sovereignty? Is it another word beginning with S, or what is it that that you hear?
What I hear is a lot of questions around building AI sustainably for the enterprise. So what that means is, you're going to replace maybe some functions or augment some functions. And we saw this recently with the M365 Copilot trial in the government. So they deployed AI and studied, and it was mainly based on user feedback. So it's not clear how credible the results are, but it gives you a sense of adoption of AI in different functions of an organization.
Yeah.
But does it actually improve the performance of the staff? Does it help improve the kind of services that you offer, or gives you an edge? When you talk about strategies about giving you an edge over the competition, does it actually give you an edge over the competition? Are you able to turn around products, services faster, having a faster refresh cycle? In some sectors, it's clear. In some others, maybe not, and there's uncertainty around that. But also, if you're going to replace all these functions, or you're going to use your existing workforce and augment them with AI, you need to remember that this workforce has been trained in a world without AI.
Yeah.
Right. And the day these people leave, you lose all that critical thinking ability, all these abilities to understand where the AI is failing. Actually, we saw an example of that, anecdotal evidence from a trial in Glasgow, where they had radiologists who had been trained before AI, without AI tools, and new young ones trained with AI. And the older generation were able to detect flaws in the AI, while the younger ones were prone to automation bias. So if the AI says something, it's always right. And the worst thing was when they moved into an environment where there was no AI, the new radiologists could not perform. They were completely lost and had to really be retrained gradually over time. So that's there's a risk around not building a sustainable pipeline with these enterprises. That's where a lot of risks.
So what do you gain? What do you potentially lose? Thank you. Go, but Mikkel, what's the challenges or issues that you hear business leaders forming?
So I think that sort of AI strategy skills point is a really important one. But for the enterprises that have solved that or got an idea of how they're going to go around that and getting into practicalities, it's the data point that Lee raised that came up earlier in the day.
Yeah. All comes back to data, right?
Yeah. Well, that's the. I mean, it was talked about as data is the new oil, right? Was the phrase which, rightly or wrongly, has been going around. And I think that's it. Where do you get it from? What quality is it? How do you control it? Is it relevant?
Yeah.
That's the most important thing. And I think understanding what data is in an organisation. We had an exchange earlier about job cards going around on paper. There's a lot of stuff that's just not digitalised.
Yeah.
That's never gonna.
Yeah.
We're never gonna get past that unless we solve that problem first.
No, very good. I don't like data as new oil because I think oil could
No,
potentially
definitely
run out.
not,
But I heard someone call it the new soil, helps things to grow. So you could take that away with you. Lee, and then we'll come to Drew, and then we'll open it up for a bit of questions.
I think I agree with my co-panel here. I think skills training are key. And there was I went to a event in London last year, and there was a big pharmaceutical that rolled out Copilot across their entire organisation, and it had failed miserably. And there was someone from Microsoft sitting there, and the answer was, because if you gave us PowerPoint, you'd train us on PowerPoint. You gave us access to Copilot, and everyone logged on and went, what the hell is this? Yeah. So they didn't use it, because that's human nature. So it's about, you can have this amazing technology and build these applications, but you've got to train people to be able to use them effectively. And I think there's probably a gap there. The skills gap, if you're a big company paying lots of money, you will have no problems finding very bright AI people to come and join your company. And you see this massive migration of talent and skills into these big organizations. How do we level up that across and make those skills gaps a lot narrower across all different types of enterprise and organizations? Probably what I'm.
Yeah, that's definitely something we hear a lot about. How can they, particularly SMEs, how can you compete? Yeah. And then Drew, other challenges or topics you hear from people?
I mean, the challenge is every challenge an opportunity. The opportunity is just recognizing what it enables in terms of energy optimization. right? That becomes obvious in the design of the energy systems themselves to some extent, but the corresponding opportunities that people don't, on average, such as the energy recovery, don't necessarily become obvious from a business case standpoint, and as I highlighted, and to all the key decision makers. And so it's an education on that. I think the skills all of my fellow panel members have covered, you know, the training and skills has been covered extensively. I think it's more the challenges and opportunities associated with the energy usage, and it is a significant opportunity, and I think that gets missed and lost in the, I like the word sustainability, but it gets lost in the sometimes negative connotation of that.
Interesting, because sustainability itself is such a huge, big issue, right?
Right.
So,
And people can be dismissive just on mentioning.
yeah. I love that though, that every challenge is an opportunity. That's brilliant. Thank you, Drew. I'm going to bring the conversation to a close, but I really hope you found that as fascinating as interesting as I did. And please, can you join me in thanking Drew, Lee, Mikkel, and Coco?